Good morning, everyone. Everyone awake already? I'm not, 100%. I'm pretty sure I'm not. So, how many of you are using the cloud already? R&D kind of things. No? Just storage and things like that. Some Dropbox stuff, Google Drive, OneDrive.
I'm doing the MSC inscriptions on the it's on zero.
Oh, nice. Has anybody had the opportunity to look at yesterday's keynote to build? The most important thing is the ambassadors receive a free Xbox One. Come on. There were a couple of interesting things. For the cloud, it's today. So today at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, there will be a keynote from Scott Guthrie, the new executive vice president, about Windows Azure specifically, and that should be fun. So, but we are here today to talk about the different thing, which is how do we choose between cloud providers? There are a lot, and suddenly they enter a pricing war, which is amazing. I like it personally, but we need to understand that there are other things that I need to think about before I choose this. I choose the cloud provider. So this is I've been doing this for a long time. This is some of the lessons I've learned not to forget in order for things to go well. So, first of all, lovely. Yay. My name is Nuno Godinho. I'm Director of Cloud Services for Europe in DevWeek Technologies. I'm also Windows Azure MVP and Service Bus Champ. I've been working with Windows Azure, AWS, Google Compute. I've worked with Salesforce also in some projects. So basically, before I talk about something, I have this crazy notion that I need to understand the other ones in order to see and to choose what's better for me. Because it's not about, yeah, I love cool technology, I'm a geek. But it's all about what makes sense for the customer. And that's the whole point. What is the customer needs? What does the business need? If I'm not solving a business need, what am I doing? So basically, this is what I've been doing, and basically, I'm so committed to the cloud, so committed to the cloud that I changed from sunny Lisbon to cloudy London. Come on, how more committed can you be? Now I see the clouds every single day, which is amazing stuff. So if you want to check out some mumblings about the cloud and everything, you can follow me on Twitter or on my blog. So let's jump down into how we actually need to choose. And the first thing is, before we choose, we need to understand our business needs. You need to understand your business needs that you're trying to solve. Because in a lot of situations, choosing the cloud provider comes wrong because you didn't have the right business needs to be fulfilled. You didn't understand what the business strategy was. You didn't understand right from the start what was the goal. Is it to cut costs? Is it to create more elasticity, scalability? Is it to open new opportunities? All of that is the cloud, is the abilities of the cloud. You need to understand first, what are the drivers? One of the things that I do with my customers is when I go and they are like, yeah, I like the cloud, I want to do something. First questions I do is why? What's your driver? Oh, I like this because I'm thinking about opening a new business unit which is going to go and deliver some new business to some new areas which I don't have any footprint in, and I don't want to spend too much and everything. Okay, that's one driver. Another one is, I had a customer that came to me and I said, I want cloud because suddenly my CEO came in and said, hey, remember your IT budget? Cloud, cuts of 30%, goodbye. And it's like, now I need the cloud. Okay, so all my decisions in choosing the right cloud provider are going to be managed by that. If my business goes and says, yeah, this is perfect, I want the cloud because I want to go to new businesses, but from a business perspective, I have a couple of restrictions, a couple of compliances I need to manage, a couple of security issues I need to fulfill. So that needs to go as part of my cloud choosing process. It's extremely important to do that, and sometimes all the cloud strategy crumbles right from the start because we didn't understand what was the business trying to achieve. Does that make sense? So the next one, so the presentation is all about crazy pictures. So manage the expectations. So yeah, it would be lovely to fly. Yeah, it's not going to happen, at least for now, maybe in a couple of years. But you need to manage the expectations. Everybody has a different view of the cloud. One of the things I like to do is when I start and I say, okay, you want to move into the cloud, why? And they tell me there are drivers and different people have different drivers, so you better ask for different people in the organization. But then is, okay, this is perfect, this is really good, helped me a lot. By the way, what's the cloud for you? Because apparently in the web, whenever we talk about cloud, there are a couple of different views of what the cloud is. So we need to have lay some ground and say, this is what I think about the cloud. We need to try to get the myths out and manage the expectations. Oh, the cloud, I want to cloud because I'm now going, and in 1 year, I'm going to be a multi-millionaire. Yeah, that's not only the cloud that can do that for you. You need to work a lot and be very lucky. So you need to manage expectations. Oh, I want to go to the cloud because I want to cut 80% of my IT spenders. Yeah, maybe. Let's try to, before, do some calculations before you basically jump out of the edge. Let's manage those expectations. It's like everybody has heard about big data, right? Big data, very big word. Unless you actually define what the heck you're talking about, a big word and nothing. So it can be, yeah, real-time big data. Yeah, okay. Does that mean real-time decisions? That means real-time analytics and putting something on the dashboard. By the way, what do you mean by real-time? Different people have different concepts of real-time. So it's a very broad system. But every time I go somewhere, and talk about either cloud or big data, they always say, yeah, that's going to change everything. Oh, I will be able to go online, click here, and based on everything that I do, all the knowledge, I'll basically pop up everything that I need, and I'll click a button, and I buy everything. Yeah, maybe in a little bit. Just hold on your horses. Let's try to first see what we can achieve, because the overhype of things normally causes you to, independently of the marvelous results you get, it's not good enough. So if you say, and I have a salesman that went into a customer and said this thing, I actually thought about killing him. And it was like, yeah, you're moving to the cloud, and we put all your application into the cloud. It will be faster than on premises. Can I kill you now? How are you measuring the fastest? Because, yeah, I have a SQL server that is going to be in the cloud. In that case, we were using SQL databases, which is even funnier to say it would be faster. It's a shared environment. So potentially it's actually not going to be faster. Can be tweaked, but it's not faster. It's more elastic. It's cheaper. I don't have so many management overhead. But from there to be faster, there's nothing faster than a SQL server on a physical box. There's nothing faster than that. So we need to manage these expectations. And when we are going into the cloud, we need to manage this. And we need to see that, oh, I love Windows Azure is going to change the world, it's the best ever. Or I love Google Compute, it's the best ever. Let's take the hypes off and really understand what they're talking about and manage the expectations. As soon as we define those two things, then your choosing process starts to be simpler. Things like data location. Why is data location important?
Legal requirements.
What?
Legal requirements.
Legal requirements. That's one. The other one is latency. Also, there are still limitations in the speed of light. We need to understand that. So when I move into the cloud, the location of my data is critical from a legal perspective, so compliance and all of those things, but also from a speed perspective. So I'm going to select the cloud vendor. Oh, they are only in US and I'm in Japan. Looks good. I'm in Japan. Marvelous! I'm going to use them. They are going to be blazing fast, right? I have around 150 milliseconds latency. The blazing fast part is probably not going to happen. Even better, I'm in China, okay? And I'm going to use a deployment that is in the US. So since they are very friendly with each other, everything is going to go well. Of course, I can't have my legal stuff from China in an American data center. Yeah, I still believe in Santa Claus. So this is the things. Also, the location is about, okay, when I look at the data center, oh, I have data centers in Europe, data centers in the US. How many data centers are there? How are they built? How are the data centers built in those locations? It's different for me saying I have one data center in Europe, but saying that all the data center, or I have several zones and everything, which is basically several data centers close by. But all of them have different power lines, internet lines, all of that stuff. It's different from saying I have one data center and they share the same energy grid. Yeah, that's perfect. If there's something on that energy grid, yeah, good luck. So that enters also the location. But normally when you think about location, we think about where is my data. From a legal perspective, that's critical. If I'm talking about healthcare information, if I'm talking about banking information, this is crucial for me to understand where my data is. And so data location, it's sometimes saying, yeah, I would love to have data replication somewhere, but I can't. Or I need to get a certain compliance, and so I need to stay within this region. For example, Amazon and Windows Azure have both FedRAMP approvals in the US. It's not on all data centers. They have specific data centers with FedRAMP. So that's important. We need to understand where we can put the stuff, and if the locations are. Normally, if we talk about the big boys, they will have across several regions. Microsoft has, for now, 2 in Europe. North Europe, Dublin, and West Europe, which is Amsterdam. So those are the 2 ones. Why, if I'm a European company and I'm putting my data there, I have both, I can leverage that. So in case of UK, I have the levels, information levels that I want, IL1, IL2, IL3, and so on. Until IL2 I can put in the cloud. In Europe, from IL2 upwards, I can't, at least for now. For Sweden, for example, they just went and did an approach to all the cloud providers, and they came out and said, we approve that anything, any level in Sweden can be placed in Windows Azure. It's the only one that they approve any different level. Why? Because they actually went, audited everything, and they said, yeah, it's better than ours, so yeah, let's go for it. So they are going to go through this, and Europe is going through. So this is important. Questions? When we think about data locations, what do you think more? Anything? One at a time.
Transferring between one and the other.
Transfer, data transfers. It's also really important to understand how does data transfer work. Because if I put my data can't leave this country, so I'm going to put the database there, and I'm going to put all my applications somewhere else in 3 locations connecting here, I need to understand 2 things. One is the latency that I'm going to have, so I need to understand all the compliances, what's the data at rest, data in motion, the 2 parts, so I can cache the data. Basically a thumb rule for that is if I reset the machine, is the data there? If the data is lost, I'm talking mostly about data in motion. If the data is still there, then I'm talking about data at rest. So if I think about the message queuing system, it's data at rest because it's built reliable. If I talk about caching, data is not there, so I'm talking mostly about data in motion. So that case, I might actually get away, but I need to think about the latency. But if I have a system which is in Europe and suddenly is connected with something which is in US, all the data transfer in is not payable, but out, normally it's paid. And I need to understand exactly what's the data transfer policies because different vendors have different policies at different prices. And that can affect significantly. And we're going to, at the end, just do a small calculation, which might seem crazy, but at the end, it's like, oh, really? Is that different? Because things seem to be the same, but there rarely are. We need to dive deep and don't forget about all the dimensions we need to think. So data location. The other one is data ownership. Is that important? Who owns my data? So there was I'm not going to name the company. There was a company that during some time had the pretty amazing data ownership on their SLA and terms of use. It's amazing. It is. You put your stuff here, and I can do pretty much whatever I want to with your data. Yeah, it's yours, but I can sniff pretty much everything, and basically then generate some analytics and everything. And then, as soon as you start basically browsing through the web, there are some things that follow you. Have you seen that? Things like, for example, someone sends you, hey, do you want to go to a movie and check out this movie next weekend? And suddenly you start browsing and the damn thing goes after you. Like, hey, go away. I know the guys send me. It's just like they are reading my documents and stuff. Yeah, they work. They actually work. So it's important to understand. There were some that actually told that as soon as you put something in theirs, the ownership was theirs. And this, apparently everybody has an issue with Patriot Act for some reason. This means that if the data ownership goes to the provider, that means that you'll never know what's happening underneath, even with the Patriot Act. If the ownership is yours, you need to be informed what that someone is requesting your data, that someone is trying to access. So that changes all the game in this. Okay, so data ownership is very important. I know SLAs and terms of use are the things that we, of course, I want to use this, so do you accept? Of course I need to. I want to use this, but it's better for you to understand, because sometimes really bad things happen. And there are very, very used systems, storage systems, personal storage systems that actually have a data ownership, which, yes, it's yours, but then sometimes you start to see your stuff somewhere else. Because when you go through the terms of use, they actually can rip some parts and use as their own. And that's sometimes not very good. That's why company policies sometimes say, you can't use this version, you only can use this other version of the product. Security. Is security important when we choose something? Yeah. Who already passed through MI5? Anyone? It's pretty cool. I was going through, I was saying, what the heck is this? That looks very secure. And suddenly, oh, you just go through, I asked someone, hey, how do I get to that place? And suddenly, you just go through MI5 and, that's what it is. And suddenly, it was pretty much like this. A lot of video cameras and everything. Perfect. But yet again, isn't supposed for a secret organization to be a secret what they are? Now I know where they are. Anybody knows. So I think it stopped being a secret for some reason. So when you go into cloud, one of the things is interesting to understand how the security works on all different levels. For example, Windows Azure has a pretty security freak view, which is, for example, there are a lot of containers and everything. The person that drives the container into the data center does not actually reach the data center. They will leave, they will stop the truck somewhere else, and then only a certified person goes, grabs, and does the rest. Okay? So now there are data center visits, so yeah. Unless you're going blindfolded and things like that. But then what happens inside your data? How is the system secured? Is there distributed denial of services tools in there? Do they have external auditors auditing the security levels? Yes. All the big boys have. Can I do a penetration test? That's a different question. Because sometimes I work with banking and GL and healthcare. G is one of them. And basically, for some reason, of course, we wanted to do penetration testing. We wanted to understand how would we be able to try to destroy the security around, because it's important for us. It's important for me to understand how my data is secured, even for me to understand what do I need in order to mitigate some of those capabilities. How are the systems? So for example, when I go into the cloud and I have my physical servers and then I have my VMs running on top and everything, it's a shared environment. How are people prevented from affecting some other people's information? This is important for me to know. So one of the things is there is a Cloud Security Alliance. Have you guys heard about them, CSA? So they basically created a matrix where cloud providers would be asked to reply to that matrix. And basically that says, okay, what's your hiring policy? What's the background checks? Who has access to when? And what exactly are they accessing? What's your retention policy? Yeah, I know, I delete something from storage. I know you have a backup. How much time is that backup is going to be still there? What are you going to do with this? What type, from a data ownership, what are you going to do with it? And from a data security, how am I sure that you're not going to use it in a way that it's not something that I would approve? So all the process of all the physical security, all the infrastructure security, all the internal security boundaries need to be fulfilled.
Is that CSA metrics available online?
Yes. In Cloud Security Alliance, cloudsecurityalliance.com, you'll have that matrix, you'll have the replies for that matrix. Microsoft has, in the Windows Azure portal, it has a trust center, where it has all the, as one is that star questionnaire, and then has some other, like the compliances and everything. So you can check there. But the Cloud Security Alliance have that online, and you can see everything. And in this case, Microsoft was the only one so far that replied to pretty much everything. They said, oh, what's the background checks that you do to your people? You have everything. What's your HR policy? They have everything. It's pretty open. It's a strangely new world about the openness. But that is critically important. It's critical for you to have that. Because you need, at the end of the day, your business is in their hands. If someone hacks the cloud, where your data is, what happens? What can I do in order to try to work around that? I need to know what their security policies are. And every time I go and talk about the cloud, someone goes and says, oh, no, that's unsafe. I will keep my data centers here, and everything is much more secure. Do you have intrusion detection? No. Okay. Do you have different DMZs? No. What do you have? Oh, I have my machine connects directly comes the internet, connects to a router, and then I have everything on top. Yeah, that's pretty brilliant security. That takes, what, 10 minutes to break? So it's a notion sometimes, and sometimes I'm talking with a friend of mine, which is a security tester, and it's always about having like stickers in front of the camera of the PC. It's always like trying to understand, oh, I'm not connecting to free Wi-Fi, or I'm doing this or that. And suddenly he was using cloud storage. And I was like, really? So you put the sticker in that thing, and then you put your videos on YouTube or on Facebook. What does not make sense in this? You need to understand the security, and there is only one way for your machine to be fully secured and nobody be able to hack it. What is it?
Not have it connected to anything.
If it's disconnected, even from the power, yeah, nobody's going to mess up. And just to be safe, lock the doors and everywhere, because someone can open it and take the disk and everything. That's the only way. We need to accept there needs to be a compromise. Customer service. There is a lot more to customer service than a pretty face. Yeah, that's important also. Also makes your day a little better. But they need to be fast. They need to be knowledgeable. Customer service. So my experience with customer service on the top three. So Microsoft, AWS, and Google. Mostly Microsoft and AWS has been pretty amazing. And so the reason is because whenever I ask something technical, like why is this system working, I have this metrics, apparently there was a brownout here, they are able to actually have the same level of conversation that I'm having, which is amazing. It's not like when I call my cable TV and they're like, oh, I don't have internet. Oh, is your machine on? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I told you that the machine was on. I opened the browser, I tried to go there. Oh, can you power on your machine? It's on! Okay? So you need to make sure that the customer service and the support level that you have is the right for your business and has the right support level. So the cloud providers provide different levels of support. So from enterprise grade to simple development grade. So, oh, I'm developing something, have a problem, I need to contact support. Is that critical? No. I have an application running, and it's basically an application which is controlling all my manufacturing. Is that important if it goes down, if that's it? Yeah, pretty much. I work with a company that was doing migration from AS400, and Microsoft wanted to put Windows servers in there, and IBM wanted to put some other things. And they went and said, oh, we're going to migrate all this and everything, and everything is going to go well, nothing will stop. And the company said, strangely enough, said yes, without even knowing the price. Put whatever price comes into your mind. I will sign it, as long as suddenly there is a paper coming out. And the paper says, so basically, per day, we basically do around $6 million. So if we stop, this means you need to refund me in $6 million. And suddenly they were like, thinking better, that doesn't seem right. Thank you, this is very good, we're very safe, but we're not going to sign that. Depending on how critical your business is, you need to understand how your support level will be. So support level, in terms of the cloud, the support level needs to be quick. You need to test it. I basically tested one of the cloud providers. I was with a customer, and they were going to production the next day. And there was all the security elements were in place, but there was a manager that went and started to say, oh, things are going tomorrow to production, so let me try to see how things are. And he decided, for some reason, to go into the portal and started to say, oh, this is cool, so many machines and everything. Oh, this has a strange name. I think this was used for just testing, and just went and bam, delete. It was basically not a very important machine. It was just the integration piece. Nothing else, just the integration piece. He deleted it. Oh, are you sure? Yes, of course. Bam. Then suddenly he's like, oh, what did I do? What did I do? How can I roll back? Oh, don't they have replicas of those things? Yeah, pretty much replicates whatever crap you do. So you delete it, yay, replicate it. And it was like, oh crap, but we need to go. So call support, and support after about 1 hour, support told me, your VM is back online. They normally don't do that, because it's very complicated. You need to have a very specific, when did that happen, and everything in order to get that. But they were able to save that one. So this is the level of support that you need. The level to talk the same language as you, and to be able to go in depth. So for example, test the support is not only, oh, yeah, my services are running in my dashboards, running really well. And suddenly you're working on your application, and your application is basically having serious issues. The right support level for a cloud provider is actually when they go and say, okay, apparently everything is okay, but your application seems to have a problem. Let's try it. You're connecting with this storage account. Let me see in this storage account what's happening. Because there might be that the storage account is in a box that is having an issue and it's not wired to the data center, so they don't know. So they will try to go in your stuff, in your components, in order to make sure that your service, what's causing it. So sometimes I actually go and say, hey, send an email and say, hey, there's something wrong. I keep getting, after around, when I try to do this many operations, I tend to get this that is coming. I'm pretty sure this shouldn't happen. And the application is doing this, so we start to go after the logs and everything, and suddenly they send me a log, okay, this is what's happening, the problem's here. And suddenly I'm going like, oh crap, the code is not that good. But this is the level that we need in support when you're talking about enterprise level applications, right? Also, interesting one is scalability and elasticity. Yeah, everybody is elastic and scalable and have unlimited resources. There is no such thing as unlimited resources. Everybody has limits. By putting so many people, this bus is still not that scalable. I'm just destroying it. Now it just needs to run a lot slower. So I need to understand what type of machines do they have in there? What type of speed do we have? So when we go and when we select and when you see machine sizes, how many of you like to go through the machine sizes and understand all of those things? Like I have extra small, or no, sorry, now it's A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6, or M1 X large, 2X large, whatever, and suddenly you're like, what does that mean, really? And suddenly, okay, this is the number of cores, this is the number of V cores, and everything. You need to understand one thing, is that when I say cores, I need to understand two things in terms of the scalability. Is it a virtual core or an actual core? Because an actual core right now, most of the cores have hyper-threading. So basically, if it's an actual core, I'm talking about two cores, two V cores. If I'm talking about one V core, if I compare one that says, oh, I have one core, but it's actually a physical core, and with another one that says I have one core, but it's actually a virtual core, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. The speed is going to be different. And so all the process is going to be different. All the price tags is going to be different. I need to compare apples with apples. So a core, normally, if I talk about a physical core, we're talking about normally hyper-threading, so two virtual cores in Windows Azure. In AWS, normally I see ECUs, that's a virtual core. So I need to understand the difference in order to compare apples with apples. And also the elasticity is, okay, now I have 10 cores. Now I need to scale, because one of the capabilities of the cloud is I need to handle the spikes. Can I scale to 100? Yeah. Okay. Can I scale 1,000? Yeah. Okay. Can I scale 10,000? Hey. Calm down. You probably can, but there needs to be a capacity planning, because they normally in the cloud, in the big players, what we are seeing is that they always have around 40 to 50% more capacity than what's being used. And that's for obvious reasons. Basically, if something fails, they will fall back and everything. And all of them are making that go more than that. The goal is to at least have 100% more than what you're using right now. So if I have 50,000 cores right now being used, the goal is to have at least 50,000 other that are available and not being used. Now for something, if it happens, I can either scale because there is a new request, or I can almost fall back from one to the other. So this is important to know. Where does it break? How fast can I do this scalability? So yeah, I have a friend of mine, I worked in a company in Portugal, and he goes and he says, hey, now since you're also working in the cloud, now what we have is we started our own cloud company. Okay, that's fine. What do you have? So we will provide you virtual machines. Okay, so it's infrastructure as a service. Yeah. So what do I need? Do I go into a portal or something? Yeah, you go into the portal, you download a Word document, you put in what exactly you want, you send it to us. We normally take around 2 weeks, and we'll give you access. We'll have a VM for you, and we'll give you access. And suddenly I was like, I'm pretty sure that's not cloud. Pretty sure that's something around hosting. We need to understand how much time do I take in order to get my resources. I need to be now. In Windows Azure, it takes in a VM, it takes around 7 to 10 minutes. In AWS, similar. In Google, pretty much similar. All of them. Because there was a lot of work to be done underneath. But it's quick for me to have. I need to understand how quick, because then when I'm going to do all my strategies around how do I auto-scale and everything, I need to say, oh, I'm going to auto-scale every minute. It takes 10 minutes to put the new machine. What's my point of changing every minute? I will at least go and say, okay, 10 minutes, then the machine is on, then I will wait 10 minutes more. So the max I can go is say, the scale rules are affected every 30 minutes in order for me to make sure that things are rolling. And importantly enough, now the cost is also per minute, so it's really really easy. I pay for what I use. The other one is quickness of innovation. How important is this for you? How quick they innovate, the providers. Is this important? We're in a world that pretty much anything we're doing now, tomorrow is potentially going to be obsolete because some other idea comes in. There needs to be massive number of innovation. Innovation in services, but also innovation of how the infrastructure is done. So for example, Windows Azure started with a topology in terms of the data center, in terms of the storage. Suddenly, they said, I'm going to a flat network type of approach. By doing that, that went, in terms of speed, that went around 1,000 times faster, at least. Just doing that. This is the innovation. Also the innovation around energy. The most expensive things in a data center is the energy. Energy consumption, cooling systems, all of that. It's important that the only way the costs are going down is if I lower my costs in running the data center. So what I need to do is try to find out new ways, automate more, and be having cheaper energy, cheaper ways in order to have a data center. So for example, there are some providers that have a different view of things. So if you go to a normal data center, as any of you went to a pre-existing data center? Probably yes. So you see all the so you need to, your floor needs to be elevated. Then you have the special phone if there is a fire or something. Only that phone is extremely expensive. So if I have a system, a data center, which is highly redundant, If something is controlling, I always have, for example, 3 replicas. And if, for example, one of the areas starts to get with a problem, what's cheaper? I'm not saying this is happening, but what would be cheaper? If I have closed areas where I can say, oh, there's a fire there. What's the cheapest way for me to put out the fire? Come on. Water. Just sink it. Probably works. So what does water do to machines? They normally don't survive that good. But it's a lot cheaper. If I have redundancy, that's cheaper for me than actually having all the other systems in order to just put out the fire. If it's redundant enough, if it's replicated enough, I will actually cut down my costs, and I can survive with that. Because that area now it's down, I replace all that area, everything's good, and we move on. It's cheaper than other systems. So this is the level of innovation. It's not only the services. Of course the services are important. Constantly having new services like, since we are in the Microsoft conference, things like the mobile services in Windows Azure, media services, Service Plus, having innovation in there, it's amazing. But also the innovation needs to go on the back end. It needs to go how the operation is being done. This is critical also. How are all the management, data center management is being done? We need to know that. Then this is something we should ask when we're talking to a provider, is what's the speed of your innovation? Is it 3 months? You release something. Is it every week? Is it every day? Because that will help me understand if I'm going to be out of date in a couple of months or not. And that's important. Also, it's important for me to understand from an innovation perspective, how well are they connecting with things that allow me to move and not have vendor lock-in? Is one of your concerns vendor lock-in in the cloud? Yeah? So vendor lock-in is a very important thing. And the quickness of innovation has also relationship to vendor lock-in. So I innovate a lot, and I normally work on something which is my own implementation of things. My own images, my own virtual disks and everything, technology. So now I want to move this machine to somewhere else. Oh, I can't, because it only runs here. Okay, I can do other tricks like using something from Mark Rusinovich, which is the disk to VHD. Yeah, I can, but it's not the perfect world. The perfect world would be to me to grab a machine, move it to other place, and yeah, it's running. And this is one of the things that Microsoft has been changing the way they do things. Have you heard about Cloud OS? Microsoft Cloud OS. Microsoft has an idea, which is Cloud OS. Cloud OS is basically saying that the cloud, as it is today, is not for everything. And we need to realize that. Anybody that goes to you and said, your full enterprise can go into the cloud and should go, you drop your old data centers, is probably having delusion. Because that's not possible. There are things that are going to be kept on-prem. We're not there yet. We're probably there in 5 to 10 years. We're not there yet. Because in 5 to 10 years, the concept of privacy is going to be slightly different. We just need to go into Facebook and see the concept of privacy on most of the people that are publishing there. It's like, I have some friends and their kids, and it's like, really? Are you putting that on Facebook? That's amazing. So, even pictures. You take a picture and you have your phones with GPS tracking and everything, and suddenly you put the picture, and then even my brother, I actually went and got the picture and said, oh, this is nice. So on this day, you went from here to here to here, you pick up your daughter here, then you went here, 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 here. That's perfect. I know your precise itinerary. Is that a good thing? Probably not. Probably I should think about one crazy thing. It's called privacy, which is something important. So the innovation needs to happen there. And in terms of vendor lock-in, Microsoft with the Cloud OS system, what's saying is the same systems with no change needs to work on the cloud and on-prem, or any other provider. So we see Windows Azure, we see Windows Azure Pack, which is for hosting providers, and we see systems that are in order to provide on-premise cloud, so private cloud. But then they are changing, you know, about the VHDs and the VHDX, which is much more extensible. It is becoming an open standard, like PPTXs and things like that. That's a crucial move in order to allow any, so suddenly I go and have my machine in Windows Azure, and suddenly I want, yeah, I need to change this, I'm going to Rackspace. And I basically grab the machine, put the machine there, spin it up, and I have the machine running. Even in cloud services or in platform as a service, the vendor lock-in is dependent on me. Do you know that? You're the ones that define if your vendor locked in or not. Because there are design patterns that you can use. So for example, if I design my solution where I use a repository pattern, so anytime that I connect to a service, I have a repository pattern that actually goes and says, this is my repository implementation for storage, this is my repository implementation for file system. I can plug and play and say, you're now going to on-prem. And it's there, it's working. If I need to change something, I'll need to change a very small thing, which is just how do I do insert, updates, deletes, and reads from the file system or from the cloud, from the storage, S3, Windows Azure Storage, Google Drive, whatever. So if I use the right coding patterns, design patterns, I will actually be able to not get vendor locked in. And that's in my control. That's something we can do. So, data extraction policy. Disks do not stand up and walk away and meet you. You need to understand that, imagine that you go and you upload a massive number of VMs. So there is, most of the players have import-export capabilities. So there was a very good sentence which is, never underestimate the power of a hard drive sent through UPS. Because if I'm going to send through the internet, like, oh, I have 5 terabytes of data, let me upload through the internet. That's going to take a while. I should grab it, put it on the hard drive, and say, hey guys, pick it up. They go, pick it up, they send you the drives, you put the information there, you send it, they go, put it in, now your data is here. And that part works very well. What about the other way around? I want to change, I want to move something. I want to, now I stopped using your service. I need my information back. What's the data extraction policy? Oh yeah, you can download through here. Can I get my disks back? No. Okay, yeah, but you can download. It's just 5 terabytes. It will take a little bit, not a lot. It would be worse, could be worse. You could have much more. Petabytes of information if you're a big data if you're using big data. So you need to understand what's that data extraction policy that you're going to use in your cloud provider. Because if the data extraction is not something that is quick getting the information to you, or if there is no data extraction policy, which in some cases there is not, then you're in trouble. If there is only an API, call this API, and you can download your information, it's like, yeah, awesome. Whee. It's going to take forever. You're probably vendor locked in, not because of your solution, but because you now, all the data that you have in there, it takes more time and more effort for you to take it off and move somewhere else that actually continue with them. So this is critical. This is sometimes a way for keeping people in the cloud providers, because at the end of the day, the goal is to make money. So check the data extraction policies. Service level agreements. Is this important? SLA. So different companies have different SLAs. We need to understand that. One says, oh, I have 99.95 on, but I don't provide single machine SLA. You need to have both. That's Microsoft. They say you need to have 2 at least, because that means that I will have a machine in 2 different areas. I have to have at least 2 machines in the same availability set. Availability set means that I'll have in one cluster 1 machine, another cluster 1 machine. If one cluster fails, the other one's still there, that gets replicated somewhere else. Okay? So I have the ability to, even if there is a maintenance going on, I still have 1 in order to continue. But it's 99.95 on a monthly basis. So it's a monthly SLA. So 99.95 will take around, I think it's 21 minutes per month. That can be off. And then the other part is, yeah, this is pretty cool. I have an SLA. I will give you, imagine I go to you, I just created the next level of cloud services. I will give you 7 nines as an SLA. Do you agree? Do you want? 7 nines. Are you going to ask me something, or are you good with 7 nines? I'll put that in the paper. 7 nines. Over what period? Okay. Monthly SLA. 7 nines, monthly SLA. Are you good now? Per machine. Per machine. What happens if I don't keep it? If I don't have in my SLA written, what happens if I don't keep that SLA? That's just me expressing my intent. I can tell you, you'll have 100. I will do my best to have 100. If I rephrase it and say, I will do my best to have 7 nines, do you still want my SLA? But it's exactly the same thing. If I don't have on my SLA, if I don't have specific information saying, I'm going to give you this SLA, and if I don't keep it, this will happen. Sometimes is you'll get service credits. Sometimes is financially backed SLAs. So if you don't keep this, then I will lose this much. Then I will get you your money back. This is an SLA I would sign. I would personally, every time I go into the cloud, I choose the one that has financially backed SLAs. Because if they are backing the SLAs with their money, they are going to put their mouth where their money is. Their money where their mouth is. the other way around. So basically, they need to show you that they are being really, really serious when they are saying it's an SLA. And an SLA needs to be in your stuff. If I tell you, oh, I have an SLA, my SLA is 99.99 and has to do with the region when you're in. So I have 99.9% on region Europe, for example. Is that good enough for you? No. In order for the region to be affected, more than a percentage has to be affected. So my machine can start being affected, and it's not considered an outage. Why? Because the region isn't down. We have SLAs in the cloud that have that. That say it's region availability and not machine availability. Also, there is another thing, is that's perfect. So you have an SLA of 5 nines. Amazing. I really want you. Now, quick question. How often are you checking if the system is up? If my machine is up? Oh, I'm checking every 10 minutes. Hold on. So 10 minutes. Okay, so my machine goes down, then it stays down for 10 minutes, and then after 10 minutes you ping it, and the machine is not there. And so when does the SLA start? As soon as my machine? No. As soon as the ping failed. So I potentially have 10 minutes plus the SLA that you have, which is 21 per. So I'm talking about 31 minutes now. And suddenly, if that happens regularly, it's like, oh crap, what's happening here? So I need to understand what's the period that they use in order to check if my machine is up. Saying that I have an SLA which is 5 nines but checks every 10 minutes, and saying that I have an SLA which is 99.95 but checks every 30 seconds, it's completely different. Right? Completely different. Having an SLA that tells me this is checked every 30 seconds, this is monthly SLA, and this is based on your machine, that's the best you can have. Because you need to ask, what's the SLA? Is it financially backed? How often are you going to check? And when does it start counting? Those are the 4 questions you need to do. When you have those, and when you are good with all those 4 answers, you're good. You have a good SLA. Until there, you don't have an SLA. And this is really good, because there are really good lawyers that when we come back and say, yeah, but it was down. Yeah, if you read well the paragraph 3 over there, you can understand another thing. Oh, wow. So you need to understand that. You need to read. A lot of times I work with big enterprises that go through every single line of the agreement with multiple solicitors in order to understand all the different ways of trying to understand that thing. And it's important in a large enterprise. Small ones, probably it's not that important, but you should read it. It takes time, it's not pretty, but it's still helpful because you understand a lot of good things. Questions so far? Comments? Personal attacks or other? That's good. And last one, costs. Is costs important? Anyone has any important with costs? Costs are different. Even if there is price wars, costs are still different. Things are not always what they appear to be. And we need to understand that. And there is only one way for you to understand what your cost will actually look like. What is that? You calculate them. You basically, it's not rocket science. You basically need to define what you're thinking. So I'm thinking I'm going to put this environment, this topology will require this many disks, this many machines, this many things. And I need to understand all the different viewpoints that I can have for the cost. For example, storage. Do I only pay for the size of the storage that I'm using? What do you think? No. What do I pay more? Transactions and more. There's another one. Actually, there are two more. So I pay for the size of my storage. I pay for the transactions or the operations that I do on my storage. What else? What?
Redundancy.
Redundancy. Just missing one. How do I get my data there, and how do I consume my data? There's data transfer also. So I have 4 different things that I need to play around. So I need to understand, okay, so what's the size of my data? How often do I do operations with my data? So how do people use it? What's the data transfer out that I'm going to have? And do I need geo-redundancy and things like that? Windows Azure has geo-distributed, geo-replicated storage, and now has read-only geo-redundant storage. So basically I have, when I put something in a data center, if I have that on, that means that in the first data center I have 3 replicas, second one, which is more than 500 miles apart, so there's always pairs. So North and West Europe are paired, because there are the only 2 ones. When you go to US, we have North Central US and South Central, they are a pair, and East and West are a pair. So when I do geo-redundancy, it basically generates 3 other replicas on the secondary one. If I have read-only or read-access geo-redundant storage, it means that the storage is there, the redundant copies are there, and I have access to them, and I can actually use them as read-only. So imagine the scenario, I want to create a DR strategy. Basically, I'm going to put the virtual machine in a location. That means since Windows Azure uses the same storage, doesn't have a special storage for the disks, it's going to have 6 replicas. If I enable on that storage account read access geo-redundant, so basically I can have, if this goes down, I can spin up a new virtual machine on the other side pointing to the read access redundant storage, and I will have at least that thing is working. Yeah, it's read-only, I know, but at least it's working. I have a very cheap DR strategy. It takes around 5-10 minutes to come up, and it's very cheap. So I need to understand that. And in order to give you with something more plausible to think about, I thought about putting together a sizing exercise. Okay, we're basically going to. I didn't identify which of the costs are from each cloud, because I don't want to be leading you anywhere. But basically, imagine I have this thing. So I'm doing. Imagine I'm going to do a Splunk. Do you guys know Splunk? Splunk is a very cool tool online that I can basically connect my logs and send my logs to them, and they aggregate them, so basically do the map reduce and everything. and they aggregate them and have a dashboard information of all the operations. It's pretty cool. It's real-time metrics, all of my systems from my crazy logs that nobody likes them. So I'm doing a Splunk, meager Splunk. So I said, okay, per day, per machine, my logs are 10 gigs per day per machine. And that's pretty easy if we get all the logs. And I have 15 machines, and my retention policy is 30 days. So basically, that means if I multiply all of them, that I have something like 4.5 terabytes of data. There is a reason why I kept it lower than 5 terabytes, because then we enter all the different ranges. If it's more than 5 terabytes, the price goes different. So I tried to keep it simple. Okay, so size of my logs is 4.5 terabytes. Okay, so I have the size of my storage. I now created the sizing for how much storage do I need. And the most important here, because this is logs, I'm only going to do generations and calculations online. I'm not considering data transfer. And in terms of geo-redundancy, I'm considering we have geo-redundancy. Okay? So data transfer, I'm not going to consume this data. Basically, I'm going to crunch it in the same location. So I'm going to only get something like a tenth of that data. So now, what I did here was, okay, I want to send this information in real time or neo real time. And so I'm going to send this information every second. The machine is going to be connected and sending the logs. And basically, from that means that I have 15 machines per month, if it's per second, per month. I have 38 million operations against my storage account. This is just put. I'm just saying, this is the storage I want to put in there. I don't pay for ingestion. I pay for operations, to put operations. If they are 1 per second for each of the 15 machines, this is the number I will have. And the periodicity, so if I change and say 5, normally it's good to have this done in Excel, because you can then validate your ideas and say, am I going completely crazy trying to do this in real time? The costs are too much. Do I need to adjust? Because architecture is not about having the perfect thing. It's the perfect thing associated with the right requirements. And if the requirements is I need to keep the cost into this number, I should change my architecture in order to actually provide that ability. That is where the architecture is perfect. Is when you adjust to what the business needs and not to what the utopia and the perfect world will tell you. So I have the size of my storage, and I have the right operations. Again, data transfer, this is only ingestion, so I don't have charges, and geo-redundancy. And now, in terms of storage costs, I have, this is the cost per gigabyte. And of course, this is total cost. So basically, I have 4.5 terabytes, so that costs me per month 135, 135, 117. Okay, which one is better? Imagine you were doing a sizing. Do you normally calculate the operations or not? Probably not. So you would stop here. What's the best? Which one do you choose? 117. Perfect. It's the right choice. Let's see. Now we go to operations. The operations has two things. The cost per operations and how the cost is affected per number of operations. I have one that says, oh, I have $0.005 per every 100,000 operations I did. Second one says it's the same price, but it's actually only on 1,000 operations. You're seeing what I'm going to get at, right? And the other one says, yeah, okay, that 0.005 is too complicated. Let's pay one cent per the same 1,000. This is just the cost of the operations. Look at the difference. Now, which one looks better? This is the total cost of my logging ingestion. Does this change your view in terms of how you need to approach costing when you're doing this into the cloud? Not everything seems to be the same. They rarely are the same. It's very unusual that they are the same. Then it's when you start to play around. So if I want per second, this is perfect, right? If I now say, okay, 5 seconds, how did it change? The number of operations went down. So now, the most important part is actually on the storage. I still have difference. So this is 28% more than this one, 44% more than this one, and this difference between these two is 12. But if I now say 10, it's different again. If I say, okay, I'm going to do this every minute, now things change. So I should do this type of costing. There are a lot of price calculators out there. There's nothing that can beat you and a spreadsheet, you knowing your system and a spreadsheet in order to test your assumptions. How many of you are architects or do architecture? This is part of our role. I'm an architect also. Do this pretty much every day. Every decision, every architecture decision I do always has something like this in mind. I always test my assumptions, my crazy ideas, with two things. One, POC in order to see if the crazy stuff is actually doable. And the second one, am I going to get my company bankrupt? I was working with a colleague of mine, and he was telling me this was basically created from his. It's not the same because the other one was really, really cool. Because it was per second, and it had something like 777 billion operations per month. So, and it was a great, really great, amazing idea. It was really, really amazing idea. Let me try to see if I can do a big number like that. At least something. Still not there. I don't know. This should be a pretty crazy number. Yeah, this should be good. Storage costs. Operation costs. In this case, the number of machines were actually lower, say 200, and let's multiply this by, just multiply this one because it was closer to that, by, yeah, just something more around that. So storage Storage costs, yeah, it's only 4.5 terabytes. It's not that much. Oh, crap. Whew. Really? Really? 25 million per month for doing this thing. Do you still think it's a good idea? It was even more. It was something along the lines of 77 million per month to keep that thing. I think Splunk would be slightly expensive if we would go there. So don't forget that you go through everything. You understand how your business wants to have things. You understand where's the data location? What's the data extraction policy? What's the, who has access to your data and everything? This is all really cool. But don't forget one thing. Don't forget that at the end of the day, you need to understand all the different viewpoints from the cost perspective and merge that with the SLAs you're getting, security you're getting, and test your ideas before you actually jump. Look before you jump, or else that might get a little bit ugly. Because this happens sometimes. When you go and say, people tend to say, cloud, you go into the cloud is about cutting costs. What do you think? Is it? No, cloud is about giving me the elasticity and the agility for me to do whatever I want. If I want to cut costs, I can, as long as I design for that. If I want to do something different, like imagine one thing. Everybody's talking about big data. Suddenly I go to you and say, okay, so if you start to do big data and use cloud in order to do all the crunching of data and profiling of your customer, churn analysis and things like that, cloud is going to be perfect for that. You're going to know your customer more and everything. Did that in any way cut your cost? No, it actually went up. You previously didn't have it, so you now have more cost. But what did it change? Your revenue. You know more your customer, you're closer to the customer, now you can actually enhance your experience and sell more. So the cloud is not about cost. The cloud is about giving you the agility in order for you to do what you think is best for your business. And if you have those elements in mind, from data security, data location, ownership, all those elements, and test your assumptions before you do anything. Test your architectures through cost, through the technology capabilities. Then you'll be successful in the cloud. Then you'll have a cloud strategy that is bulletproof, and that will give you and make you to the next level. Thank you. Questions?
Where do you see the Amazon one sort of price war going now? Like it's actually cost. Are they running a loss now on those systems?
So I don't have the costing information. I would expect not.
There was another email that came out a couple of days ago and they just slashed it out.
Say they slashed, so Google started and slashed. There were actually all the three ones were Microsoft, Amazon, and Google. They slashed again the storage prices and compute. They're going to keep going at this. At some point they will stop because it's not free running a data center and running innovation and all of that thing. And one thing that we all understand is if they lower the price at some point, it's because they know they are going to have the return on the other side. So again, it's about reading the terms of use and understanding how are you actually making money out of this. because you're not a charity. None of them are a charity company. I've been told millions of times when I was giving and we were in meetings and I was saying, why don't you do this? This price is just crazy. And they were like, we aren't in money-making business. I know, there are a lot of ways to make money. So, depending, in order to lower the cost, I either lowered my actual cost with the data centers, which is part of what's happening, or I know that I'm going to get somewhere else that cost. And that's where you should go through the SLAs and to the agreement and understand, is that going to be done through analyzing my data and then creating profiles and selling that profile to someone else for ads company? If that's it, then I need to understand if I want to play that game or not. And at some point we're still going to have the price war for a little bit more, but at some point there will be someone that actually says, stops here. This is a service, and if I don't want to enter that part of actually looking at my customers' data and then monetizing my customers' data in any way, if I want reliability and everything, I'm going to stop here. Because after a certain point, they will need to start degrading the capabilities. So the price war will continue. I'm expecting that at some point, one of them is going to just say, okay, it's enough. I'm not in this only for being the best cost ever. It's the best service, which is two different things. And you saw in that thing, you saw in this small calculation, that even with a price war, they are very different. Even if they said they match the price, they are very different. Because, okay, I'm lowering the cost in storage and I'm increasing in operations. I'm still increasing the cost. Because I basically changed the viewpoint that you normally look. You normally look at the viewpoint that how many data do I have here? People tend to forget, what do I do with my data? How many operations? And if I change and lower the cost only in storage and forget to lower it in operations and basically don't speak about them, you're going to have a brilliant surprise when you get the bill. When you see the bill, it's like, I wasn't expecting this. And sometimes, most of the times, it's actually irrelevant. If it's a virtual machine, it's almost irrelevant. But when we're talking about systems that do a lot read and writes, then we have the surprises. And there are providers that mostly you go and you do a calculation on the calculator and everything. And at the end of the day, when you get the first bill, your impact is like, it's 40% more than I was expecting, because you didn't think about those things. So you need to think about compute, you need to think about storage, you need to think about all your disk storage size, all your operations, data transfers, all of those things are critical for you to understand your real cost. If you put all those when you do your calculation, you won't have a surprise. You're probably going to have a good surprise, not a bad one. It's always better to have those. Did that help? Really? You like the session?
It's good.
Great. Any more questions?
Does Azure have a comprehensive calculator like Amazon does?
Has.
A very basic one where you just scroll bar on it. So
Has a comprehensive calculator. So if you go to, let me see, Azure.com, you just put your pricing calculator. Full calculator. You now have everything. And you can basically say whatever you want, and it will even on the down, it even enable you to select which type of price. So it estimates your price and says, if I pay as you go, this is how much. If I go up and I put, for example, I'm going to put Excel, I'm going to put, crazy, okay, now going down and put where's storage, that's the page blocks, and that's probably a little bit too much. Okay. Now, if I go down, now if I go down, where's my mouse? I have here the price, pay as you go. Oh, what about if I do a 6 months plan, or if I do a 12-month plan? What if I do a prepaid? Because some companies, cloud is mostly about OPEX versus CAPEX. So basically it's operation cost. But if there are some companies still, and the public sector, a lot of them need to have upfront costs and have the budgets and so on. So you can also do it. And then in Windows Azure, there's also another thing, which is the enterprise agreement, which will give you a lot more benefits. So enterprise support, all of those things. So it has a calculator like AWS. One of the things that I would recommend you is build your spreadsheet. It's not complex to build. Basically, I normally build my own spreadsheet for every single project because every project has this small tweaks that we need to calculate. How many operations? Oh, this is going to be event-driven. How many operations do I need, and so on and so forth. So build your own, and then you can test your assumptions when you get to the sizes. You can test your assumptions here just to sanity check what you're doing. But it's better for you if you have your own spreadsheet. Any more questions? No? So thank you very much and have a nice rest of the event.